Today we are in Worley's Run Cemetery in Nile Township, Scioto County, Ohio. Worley's Run Cemetery is an active cemetery maintained by the Nile Township trustees. While it's not the oldest of cemeteries, it is a cemetery that serves this small community that's neither Friendship or West Portsmouth. It's an area all of its own. So you can see the trustees have included a sign with contact information and postings, regulations. The cemetery itself is kind of divided into the older section here, and then to the left-hand side of the road that runs through the middle, we see a newer section. So we'll start over here with an older section. And while I say older, if you're thinking 1880s, 1860s, that's not the case. A lot of these burials are 1930s and on. While some of the burials do fill chronologically, there are several family lots here that we've noticed. So families have either purchased or the township has seen fit that families stay together in their burials. So some of the prominent names that we see in this location are Scotts, Shawls, Swords, Webbs, and we'll speak to some of the other names as we go along. But I did say that there are a lot of newer markers. So we have the polished granite markers, but we also have a variety of other markers as well. We'll see those here in a couple minutes. So here we're going past the Swords family, and then we head into the McGraws. We have William McGraw, who died in 1922. He was with Company B, 1st Regiment of the Ohio Heavy Artillery. And then we have what can be assumed to be a McGraw here, but that stone's broken. We'll walk up this way. We have Odell's. And the row behind it, we have Barnett's and McGraw's. So for those that are curious in genealogy, it's always interesting to see how these names reoccur and how they intermarry. You'll notice that these aren't new burials. They look like new burials, but it looks like good uses has been made of the spoil when a new grave is filled. Instead of piling it up on the margins of a cemetery, it's being used, or at least it appears to be being used, to keep graves level, because as you know, they tend to sink over time, and depending on the soil composition, not only is it unsightly, it can be dangerous for those that are maintaining the cemetery. So that spoil is being put to good use. Here we have Jordans and Sadlers. Here we have a concrete marker. This is pretty common in this area. So the concrete is stamped with the names, and then it's filled in with paint. And you can see from this case, the cast base has been broken, so it's no longer upright. But you can see it's been painted over the years to give it that marble appearance. Another more recent style we see are the thin granite veneers, where they have their laser inscribed. Sometimes those will be freestanding. Sometimes they'll be affixed to another marker. I know that working with the Scioto County Infirmary Cemetery, we have purchased granite, had it inscribed, and then affixed it to flat concrete bases so that they can be mowed over but still be legible years down the road. Here we have a good example of the many different ways concrete's been used through the years. Here we have the headstone for Ricky Eugene Rickards, who died in August of 1978. Now, at first glance, the gray might make you think that it's a slate gravestone, but it's actually just concrete that's been covered, and it looks like maybe gray latex paint, and then had a bronze marker attached to it. So from a distance, you would think that's slate. And it looks very nice, and it's maintained itself over the years. Here we have two different styles of government issued markers. We have the flat marble marker for Charles Breach, and here we have the flat bronze marker for Paul L. Kelly. So two different periods of time, two different styles of government headstone right next to each other. We go on, we see more markers. These are really low to the ground, hard to read. This is Mary Holsinger. And then here, this is one that every time I come, I have to look at these three. So this is a cement headstone for Walter L. Kelly, who was born June 13th, 1916, and died July 6th, 1981. And then we have two little figures at the very bottom. So that's been, someone's taken a sharp instrument while the cement was still wet-ish, and they've inscribed that. And it's weathered fairly well. Next to them, we have the curious headstone of Alan Yates. And I found a story on him. He was described as a huckster. So maybe you all can tell me what that means, but his monument has a lot of effort's been put into it. We have galvanized sheet metal, and then the letters are the metal letters like you would affix to your house or your mailbox. Those have been affixed to the galvanized sheet metal. And then in between, it looks like they've taken bricks and then filled the void with cement. And then that's been pressed. The curvature of it has rusted away. And we have another example here that's also a Yates that can give us a little bit more detailing. We have the same galvanized sheet metal, but we can see the curvature is still in place. And what's also in place is where the joinery, and you can see the little notches that are cut in to bend the sheet metal so that it tucked in there and created a seam. And then if we look down in, we can still see the nails. Now those nails affixed the letters to what looks like wood, and then it was backed by a concrete headstone. So this would have been made, I'm guessing, as a sleeve that would have fit down over top of the concrete marker. And then here we have a better view of what the galvanized metal looks like. So that's the Yates markers at Worley's Run Cemetery. As we make our way up here, we have a private residence in the back. We get into maybe an older section. It's kind of up in the Air Force, because over here across the road in the newer part of the cemetery, we have what may be the oldest marker. It's a large columnar marble marker. The column, however, looks as though it's gone. It's no longer there, with the plinth stone that would have supported that column being fractured, possibly from the weight of it. And it's been restructured at some point. There we found signs of caulking. So someone's attempted to reassemble it without the column. Unfortunately, what's missing is all of the information as to who's buried there. So there's no given names, no surnames, no dates of death. So while this section may look older because of the prevalence of fieldstones, a lot of these fieldstones appear to be from the 19-teens on to the 1930s. Here we have an older style government marker for Levi Fowler. And here we can note that he was born in 1847 and then died in 1923. He served as a private with the 2nd Regiment of the Ohio Heavy Artillery. Next to this, though, we have a hand-hewn stone for Levi Fowler, who notes that he was born in 1848 and died in 1923. So whether he was born in 1848 or 1847. He had been approximately 13, 14 years old at the onset of the American Civil War. If we look, it's kind of hard to tell on camera, so we'll go with the lower angle. We have a line that draws up here like a berm, then comes down, and this entire, on the inside of it, we have field stones. And these field stones are most likely burials. From the spacing between what would be a headstone and a field stone, we take it that they're burials for children, most likely for the Fowler family. Here we have another line of field stones, and we've been using an LED light shined perpendicular to the stone, and it gives us good relief to be able to read these. Not all of them are inscribed, and not all of them are inscribed as well. Here we have a marble slab, and its initials read as AJN. And as you can see, kind of where the leaves have gathered, there's some indentions there, and those correspond to field stones and are also likely burials. So, in keeping with families being kept together, it's possible that the family tradition of using field stones, the ones that are legible, may be newer, the ones that aren't marked in any way could be older. So we could have multiple generations buried together, and the only ones that give us any information are newer. We have all of these. These did have inscriptions. We photographed them using light for relief. Here's a better example. So this shows up great in camera, not so great just with the naked eye, but it says Earl Taylor, and underneath it said Edward. So we know that Taylor in this area right here is a common surname, and Edward isn't a common surname found in the cemetery, so we're thinking that it may be Earl Taylor and Edward Taylor. And then here we have newer granite markers for the Swords family. We come up this way, we can see more footstones. The line we're walking on is footstones. We have the Nice family, the Beaver family. I think this is Betty Ruth Taylor, and you can see the scratching across it. A lot of times that happens from mowers. And then we have another Taylor there. This is one that in poor lighting, it may not be legible, but it's great now. We can see the name is flanked with crosses, and we have 1938 to 79, and it says, "I love you, Dad." And then it's flanked at the very bottom by crosses. And so this is a Taylor's, and then we have a John Taylor here, which is 1936, and that's just a building block that's been inscribed. Or maybe they've used the form for a building block. Here we have another cement headstone that looks like the decorative placard that's a temporary marker for graves. It says Mother on it. It's been engraved. And then the concrete is Harriet J. Taylor. And that, you can see where either the paint's relatively new, it's been painted over, but it's leached down the face of this marker. We have the Shobe family. And then we have Andy Beavers, and it says "At Rest." So we're gonna cross the road here, but I think first we'll take us a nice establishing shot So Worley's Run Cemetery in Nile Township, Scioto County, Ohio, is located off of Worley's Run at the very top of the hill. And you can imagine it has a great view. Directly in front of us, and that past that hillside would be the Ohio River. And then we go around and we'll face northwest here. And over that way, Worley's Run would meet up with Odell Creek, which would meet up with State Route 125, which would go from West Portsmouth to West Union. So just to give you a little bit, some bearings here. This is an active cemetery, so we found good indications that it's been well maintained. You know, we have rules posted. We have markers that would denote lots, so it'd be interesting to see what records exist for these and how far back those records go. Burials here are on the traditional Christian pattern where they face east. And even in this newer section, we have markers such as this that are stone, and then that looks like it's been lasered and painted for Marcella Worthington. And then every shade and variety of granite. We're making our way towards the large marble monument that we spoke about several minutes ago. So just bear with us. Since a lot of these monuments include the deceased and as well as ones that are pre-needs, I'm just kind of walk by them out of respect for those folks' privacy. This is the large marble monument that I spoke of a couple of minutes ago. We did come through and took a LiDAR and a 3D photogrammetry scan of this. So we took approximately 78 photos that are stitched and overlaid from multiple directions, so that despite the algae growth and mold growth that's on there, we're able to read the inscriptions in relief without actually touching the stone. And we have several inscriptions here. We have one on this side. And then over here we have the wreath. I'm gonna guess maybe like a laurel wreath. And the traditional willow tree. We look up, and this is what we think would be the capstone for a column. Over here we have more inscription. Maybe we'll come back and do a video where we clean this monument with D2 and read what it says. Here on the backside, we can kind of start to see where the weight possibly has caused this stone to fracture. And here we have a nice horizontal fracture and then a vertical fracture. And then in the seams, we can see like setting putty, but it has more of a latex feel to it. Maybe like a silicone. And then over here, we have another laurel wreath with a fully bloomed rose. And while not every marker is the same and symbolism doesn't always carry through, it meant a lot to both the Victorians and the Edwardians. So to see a fully bloomed rose, it could mean a life that was been, lived in completeness and fullness, that they died of an old age. Sometimes we'll see ones that are just rose buds. So we typically see those with a person that died in their youth or died very young. But a single rose is a little bit of an enigma. Did they die in their, young adulthood, or did they die when they were older? But traditionally we see these, the style monument from the 1860s on to the 1890s, not much afterwards. looking to find a grave, we weren't able to find a burial that was associated with anyone that's missing a marker. So right now we have no indication as to who this is, but we can see we have a large base. This was meant to be a large monument. And it goes up. That's probably about 1.5 to 2 feet. And this here being the capstone. So if you could have imagined, a 3 to 4 foot column with that on the cap, and then being brilliant white marble. And then, so it would be hard to assume that this might be the oldest burial in the cemetery, and with later family burials being across the way. So we might do some property research to see who would have lived here at that time, and see if we can find any stories that would support a particular family being buried here. And we'll pan around. We have more recent burials. There's an interesting one up here. We'll look at the back of it. It is a mixture of concrete and field stone. It's been done in like a mosaic style. I'm curious as to how long it will weather. But here we have the local stone being mixed with cement. And on the front, there's a glass panel, which we think would have included a photo of the decedent. And for those that do this a lot, you'll know that photographs that aren't sealed, that don't have UV resistant glass, the photographs don't last very long. So what we're left with is just the glass pane and staining, but it's been circled with stones, and we have flowers and butterflies that have been stamped, and then in hand lettering, it's been inscribed Mom, Dorothy Burns, November 15th, 1952. I'm gonna guess that was her birth year based on the materials that were used in it. But we'll come over here to the corner. And take one more shot. We have one more cemetery to visit today. We have the historic Holt Cemetery in Nile Township off of 125, so about a mile away to visit. But this is Worley's Run Cemetery in Nile Township, Scioto County, Ohio. I appreciate you all coming out with us today and watching. Thanks.